Alright, oftentimes patients can be hard to deal with. However, patient families can sometimes be harder to deal with. In one case, one instance, tales from the floor. I'll call it one tale from the floor. I was not this patient's nurse, but I was on this team. We had a patient show up from Texas. For whatever reason, they were visiting and they came to our facility from Texas. I was on a diabetic step-down unit at the time. Called it the DICU, believe it or not, the diabetic ICU. Patient shows up to the DICU from Texas. Like I said, they were visiting and showed up. Patient was okay. Patient was, a regular old patient. However, the son of patient was a doctor, a real-life medical doctor. Yes, a hospitalist nonetheless. Patient shows up to the DICU and patient or spouse had gotten in touch with Dr. Son. Dr. Son from Texas calls our unit and somehow gets through to the nurse. I was working night shift at the time. We did not have a secretary on the unit, so evidently somehow switchboard transferred them to that nurse. In any case, the nurse then answers the phone and says, "Hello, such and such, this is the DICU," or, diabetic ICU, whatever you want to call it. Patient's son, doctor, starts barking off orders. Says, "Hey, my parent needs to have this antibiotic, this style insulin drip, finger checks this so often, this medication for whatever it may be." Many of them were different than what we were already giving patient. They figured this out, I assume, because patient or spouse spoke to medical doctor's son. Now all of a sudden we've got this medical doctor from Texas giving us orders as to what we should and should not give the patient. Trying to undermine our providers, who are in many cases endocrinologists. Sometimes they were cardiologists. Our sister unit was the cardiac ICU. Depended upon who was on call at the time, but this hospitalist from Texas is undermining us, undermining our providers in order for their parent to have better care, I'll say in quotation marks, under their own personal care. Medical doctor's son called periodically all through the night, trying to change orders, get things done, get labs drawn, finger checks, whatever it may be. Medical doctor's son kept doing this. Now, I don't know how things work in Texas. I'm not from Texas. I live in North Carolina. But in North Carolina, we tend to shy away from treating our family members. I don't think I could be my children's nurse. I definitely wouldn't want to be my children's nurse. I've worked with nurses who have had family members on the unit before, and that nurse said I have to stay away due to HIPAA violations and things like this. The nurse taking report from the doctor in Texas was Mother Hen. She was the nurse that we went to. She had the most experience, the best skills. She had been a nurse longer than I had been alive. A phenomenal nurse. Choose out son doctor. Choose him slap out. Says, "Are you here?" No. "Are you her doctor?" No. "You're 10,000 miles away in Texas. You are not my patient's provider, and I will not listen to what you have to say." And every time medical doctor's son called, same nurse kept on. "I am not going to listen to what you say. I will not disregard the orders from my providers, who I am under at this moment in time." To be quite honest with you, I'm not sure how telehealth works, but this was 10 to 12 years ago. I'm not sure that a doctor in Texas can give orders to a nurse in North Carolina who's not in the same hospital system. I would imagine that there's some sort of chain of command that has to be followed in order for another doctor from another provider to give a nurse orders. I've never had to deal with that, so I don't know how that works. And this nurse was not going to deal with it. That nurse that I'm speaking of did not tolerate medical doctor's son, answered questions according to HIPAA, and then pretty much hung up on the dude. Didn't give orders at all. Family became irritated, to say the least. Patient stayed pretty okay with it, to be honest with you. Patient was still okay with us treating them. It was the rest of the family that was like, our son's a doctor. My nephew's a doctor, whatever it may be. He's a doctor. You should listen to him. We are fully aware that your family member is a doctor, but we have our own orders that we have to follow. Thank you so very much. Possibly the most difficult family I've had to deal with, because every family says, oh, they have the same infection I had. I got gentamicin. They're getting clindamycin. Why is there a difference? And why are you giving this to them? And I got that. You should change their medicine. Typically, families will say something similar to that, but this is the first and only time I've ever had a patient that, and it wasn't even my patient, a patient that had a family member who was a medical provider actually giving us orders. I've never seen this before. I've never experienced that ever, and hopefully never will again. Wasn't the best situation. It ended up good for everyone involved. The nurse who took the phone call actually got praised from management for how that they handled the situation, believe it or not. Difficult families are hard to deal with, but it's going to be common practice in nursing. If you've ever dealt with a difficult family, let me know. I'm curious. I'd like to know. If you like this video, YouTube says you'll like that one over there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe over there. Hope it helps. Thank you much.